Boom, here we go. Live episode 5. We are live from the M Factor Studios here in Jackson, Michigan. This is A to G. We are back after a very solid week for the Wolverines. We will have the recap as well as MSU goes down against the Hoosiers. Minnesota gives us a nice little favor against Purdue. And, of course, Call the Three. We will have it all tonight. With me, as always, Garrett Collier. G, how you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Oh, fantastic. Another solid week of basketball.
Yeah.
A little better than last week, I got to say. I'll tell you what, G comes rolling in here tonight with the sweet sweatshirt on. He's got the hoodie, a solid choice, man.
Yeah, it's actually, I stole it from my grandpa this weekend. So.
Oh, well, excellent
A
choice.
recent addition.
Awesome. Well, go Bulldogs. Go Bulldogs.
Sure.
We'll dive right into it, folks. We had a solid game last Thursday against Nebraska, a lifeless Nebraska, that is. Michigan improved to 25-4, 82-53 win over the Cornhuskers. Teske Livers with a double-double. Teske with 22-10, Livers with 12-10. Livers was starting for the injured Matthews. Simpson leading, of course, the offense, as usual, with a solid 10 assists, as well as 6 boards. And true freshman Colin Castleton off the bench with 11 points and 3 boards. No one from Nebraska really even mentioning, as they shouldn't even have made the trip to Ann Arbor. What do you think about it, G?
Yeah, I have been saying for weeks that I would love one time for Michigan to just comfortably win a game where I can just watch it, enjoy it, relax. And that was the first one I can remember in quite some time. I was at the bar watching it, hanging out, and I didn't have to I wasn't like glued to the TV every possession like it mattered. It was nice to be able to just relax, enjoy the game, and come out with a solid win. The only worry is, Xavier had 3 turnovers, but I mean, for any other point guard, that's about average. For him, that seemed like a lot, so no worries really. The team did have 13, but outside of that, no concerns at all. It was comfortable. Defense was good, and we shot the 3 well. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, really easy to be sloppy anyway when you're up by that much.
Absolutely.
Against at home
Absolutely.
and stuff on senior night. And I'll tell you what, we did talk about that last week, G, how we would just love to have one game where we could just sit there, relax, and boy, Michigan delivered. I'm sure it was for us, too. I'm sure all the players pretty much tune into A to G.
Oh, yeah, they definitely listen.
And, check us out. So, M factors for the game, great shooting, 55.6% from the field, 54.5% from three-point land. G, what did you agree with that on the the first M factor?
Yeah, I think 100% think that was key. When it seems like as the 3 goes, we go as a team, which is a little risky formula, but when you're on, and you win by 30, So it was nice, like we talked about in previous episodes, we had been struggling to shoot the ball well outside of Livers, it seemed like, and everybody seemed to come with their A game against Nebraska. Again, it's Nebraska. They're probably the biggest disappointment in the Big Ten this year.
Absolutely.
But they've still got ballers. They hung with State for a little bit yesterday before State made that run late in the first half, early second. They've got some ballers, and I thought we did a good job handling them for sure.
Speaking of which, that is my second M factor of the game. It looked like Nebraska didn't even want to be there. They look like a high school basketball team. They basically quit on their coach, who will basically be fired at the end of the season.
You think so?
Yeah, I think they mentioned something like that during the game, how they definitely, like you mentioned, the biggest disappointment in the Big Ten this year, I would say by far. I think
they did get hosed a little bit by the NCAA last year. 13-5 in the conference, and you don't get into the tournament is a little bit absurd. But I don't know. I've always liked their coach, but I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. As far I completely agree. Biggest disappointment in the league, and with this as much talent as they have, it does seem like they'd have played a little bit better this year than they have for sure.
Agreed. And then followed up that with a few more M factors. One was Castleton off the bench, doing some work. A possible spark for Teske, a little bit of a backup perhaps that would really help us going into the Big Ten tournament. It might help us this Sunday. Again, we'll go over that a little later. The big one, the rematch this Sunday.
Right?
Or, pardon me, Saturday. Yep. Sorry, G.
No, you're straight.
Yep, this Saturday. And I'll tell you what, that was great to see. It's provided some great energy, especially since it was early on, too. It wasn't like it was at the end of the game mop-up points. You know
right.
what I mean?
No,
so he had a solid game.
He looked good, and he had some decent minutes against, not as many, but a few minutes against Maryland, which we'll get to. I think him, Johns, and Davis all having minutes now. Even when you get in foul trouble, they've at least been in Big Ten games. They've been in those environments. So whether it's the tournament, the Big Ten tournament, or the game on Saturday, whatever situation, if Teske gets in foul trouble now, it feels like we've got somebody who can come in and at least has been there before.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. My very last M factor of the game was Livers coming.
Yep.
Just Livers starting the game. the offensive flow just looks much better when he is starting the game. Nothing against Matthews. It's not like Matthews is an offensive liability. In fact,
Not at all.
Matthews has easily won us at least 2 games,
Yeah.
single-handedly.
Yeah.
Single-handedly won
Yep.
us at least 2 games. So nothing against Matthews. I'm sure he will be back starting. But I do like the way that Michigan offense looks the last 2 games with Livers starting the game and not coming off the bench.
That's one. I have that in my notes that over the last 2 games he has looked really good at. He looks like a starter. It doesn't feel like we're missing a starter when he's not on the floor.
Absolutely. I mean, he started last year.
When he's on the
So
court. Yeah.
started last year.
Yeah.
So, and again, we mentioned it last week. Michigan continues their streak of no back-to-back losses. Since when was it? I think you looked it up.
2016. I looked it up after we got off the air last time. It was 2016 was the last time we lost.
2016, folks. 2016. That's unreal since back-to-back losses for Michigan. So onward to the next. That would be Michigan with a big road victory on Sunday against Maryland. Another great game. They improved to 26-4 with a 69-62 win over the Terrapins. All 5 starters in double figures for the Wolverines. Teskey and Simpson both had double-doubles. Simpson with a second straight double-figure assist game with 10 assists and 12 points. Iggy led all scorers with a very solid 21-point performance and a lot of huge buckets that game. He ended a lot of scoring streaks and a lot of droughts for Michigan, which has been our Achilles heel for most of the Big Ten season. Really, only Fernando stuck out for me for Maryland. So other than
he
that,
stuck out for
what do
me
you
all
got,
year.
G?
I agree. I think Fernando and that Jalen Smith kid is pretty good, but we shut him down. I mean, he had 11 and 5, which is far below his rebounding average for the year. Anthony Cowan, also that little guard they've got, can score, and we held him to 10. So, no qualms with this one either. A little streaky in scoring as usual, but I thought the Maryland fans picked the wrong guy to pick on because he came to play, and like you said, big buckets from him. I thought Livers again looked really good, looked like a starter.
Yep, Livers with 11 points, 5 boards, including 3 of 8 from three-point land. Not his best shooting performance, but again, he hit a lot of solid threes.
He'll take 3 of 8, yeah.
Yep, exactly.
And again, DeJulius and Castleton both playing as well as Brooks. It looks like we've got 5 guys on the bench, potentially 6 if Matthews is healthy.
Yep.
Livers goes back to the bench. Now you've got 6 guys that have played significant minutes off the bench, which 3 weeks ago there was 3. So that's a big improvement as far as that goes.
Definitely a huge help. A little more confidence, I have anyway, of the bench, especially after – it's good to get these guys some good minutes in the Big Ten schedule. So some of the factors for the game, actually, Teskey a little off on that game. 1 3, 1 of 6.
He took so many. I don't know what he was.
I'll tell you what, though, just
the
like
one that went in, we needed though. To be fair,
another big one, kind of like the game against Minnesota, where he kind of just was off a little bit for most of the game, and then had the big one at the end.
You're right.
Towards the end of the game, anyway. So some of the factors for this game: Iggy with the solid run, ending buckets all game long, and again droughts.
He rebounded well too, which I think is important when you're playing a team with 2 really good bigs. Your guys, other than obviously Teskey's going to get his boards. I think he had 10. I think is what I got. Yeah, he had 10. He's going to get his. You need somebody, especially when Charles is out, you need either Livers or Iggy to also be crashing the boards, and Iggy did a good job of it. So I thought that was important as well.
I agree. And Simpson, again, with another great ratio, assist to turnover ratio, only 10 assists to 2 turnovers. Again, leading the team just solidly, just like he did just like he's been doing for most of the season. So another factor for the game was no one stepping up for Maryland. Like we mentioned, Fernando was really the only player that I saw that had any sort of enthusiasm, any sort of emotion and stuff like that. So what do you got? You got anything else on that, G?
I mean, like I said, I like Anthony Cowan. I like that little guard they've got. I think for his size, he scores really well. He reminds me of Simpson a little bit in that regard. He can make his own shot despite the fact that he's under 6 foot. But I thought we did a really good job just managing their scorers and making sure nobody went off on us. Their shooters didn't have great days, and I think we just kind of are a little bit better than Maryland, and we've beat them by a few both times.
Yep, absolutely. And that leads us kind of segue into the MSU letdown with the loss at Indiana on Saturday. Sparty fans, you must have been feeling that one pretty bad. Indiana beats MSU 63-62, completes the season sweep. And it was, what is it? Indiana's only, would they win three conference wins this year?
I don't know if it's conference wins, but 3 of their last 14 or 15 and 2 against State.
2 against State. So that dropped MSU to number 9 in the polls. We'll get obviously to the polls here in a little bit. But Winston misses in the final seconds. He still had a good game though, 20 points and 11 assists.
He played well.
I can't really knock Winston. Obviously, you give it to your playmaker at the end of the game, and he just couldn't provide. They were right where they wanted to be in terms of having the ball with a couple seconds to go and stuff like that. So Justin Smith still the show for Indiana, though, 24 points. But still, MSU controlled most of the game, and then Indiana had that nice little run. I remember we were watching the game, kept looking up there, MSU by 8, MSU by 10, MSU by 11, back to 8. And then all of a sudden I look up, Indiana down by 2.
Right.
Actually, one of our buddies, Scotty, actually mentioned, oh my gosh, you got to look at this. They're only down by 2 and stuff like that. So that was insane. MSU 14 turnovers, but uncharacteristically allows 15 offensive rebounds. How about that, G?
Yeah, that's, I mean, a staple of Izzo's teams is they rebound the ball well. I think it's a combination of things for State going into this game they had against Maryland last night. I think they were tired. I think everybody's got to play way more minutes than they were probably anticipating. Goins, McQuaid, Tillman all playing. I have here all 5 starters played at least 32 minutes, including 3 that played 36 or 38. I mean, that's, you know, I hear people always say, well, they're kids, they can run all day. Like, I'm 22 and I can't run to the parking lot.
Exactly.
Like,
don't get me wrong, they're probably in a little better shape.
I would certainly hope they do a little more running and a little less drinking than I tend to do. So they should be in better shape. But that's such a dumb thing. I hate when they say that. When you lose, 3 of their rotation players, 2 starters and Arns off the bench, that's depth. Those are minutes that these guys probably weren't expecting to play. And again, the sloppy play, you can't turn the ball over, but that happens when you're tired.
Fatigue.
When you don't box out, well, you stop. That's something you stop doing when you're tired. So I think a lot of it probably has to do with just it's a lot of basketball in a short amount of time without some of their best guys. And so I think that's going to be something to watch for them over the next few days. They seemed to figure it out last night. And
let's face it, that is a tough environment to play in.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah,
always is. And Indiana just seems to have MSU's number.
They almost beat Purdue
but
too there.
You're absolutely spot on. That fatigue when it comes to they're college athletes and stuff like that. That's a big cop out. These guys are working their butts off out there. So you can't. Fatigue is an issue especially when you got 2 of your. It
doesn't matter how old you are.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So, however, MSU bounces back against Nebraska last night against another lifeless Nebraska team.
Yeah.
And again, that sets up a very, very interesting game coming up this Saturday night. We'll preview that in a bit, folks. We'll jump to our next topic, which is basically the other scores in the number 1 seed watch, which has become a pretty solid segment of the show.
Well, and it's getting more and more interesting by the day. It
seems
as teams are winning and losing.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. So basically, we got Gonzaga, Virginia, UNC, Duke all rolled over the weekend. UNC jumps Duke for the number 3 spot. I did mention it last week. I said, watch out for North Carolina. Yep. They are definitely playing hot right now. Kentucky, Houston, MSU all go down over the weekend.
Yeah, I was like an idiot on that whole Houston call. But.
Hey, I was right there with you, though. I agreed the fact that Houston's just dangerous. They have one loss last week, and we mentioned it last week, folks, how it took us
They're a miracle
prayer
3
shot.
From the
Exactly. So that did kind of jumble up the top 10, though.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the big games were last night and stuff like that, so we get to report on those as well. So Kentucky drops 2 after their loss. Houston dropped 4 out of the top 10.
Which didn't surprise me at all.
So you do agree with that then?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where when you don't play as many good teams, one loss to one of those lesser teams looks worse. If you're a Michigan, if you're a Michigan State, if you're a Kentucky, a Duke, when you lose one game to a conference opponent, it's not as big of a deal as when you're Houston or Nevada and you lose one game, or Gonzaga when you lose one game to a conference opponent. I think it's a bigger deal. It's put under a microscope a little bit when you're one of those mid-major schools.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, like I mentioned, the top 10 really shuffled over the weekend. Michigan, however, moves to number 7, kind of leapfrog Michigan State there. Probably rightfully so, even though Michigan State does have the win against Michigan. However, in this day and age, we got 2 less losses, right? And we did beat a solid Maryland team on the road.
It's going to come down to Saturday,
though.
You know what I mean?
Beat Nebraska.
It'll come down to Saturday.
We will get into that here in a bit, but it's just incredible to me that people still are stating, oh, well, how's Michigan State ranked behind Michigan? Well, how's Michigan ranked that far behind UNC?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's an argument that I don't really care to have because you really don't know. You're absolutely right. It's going to come down to Saturday.
To me. Yeah. It's a guessing game. It always is.
And to be honest with you, let me ask you this: I wouldn't want to play UNC right now. I was glad we played them.
I'm glad we played them when we did.
Exactly.
I don't think they were terrible when we played them. I think they were just meshing. They were
Yeah.
working on meshing,
Yep.
and they weren't there yet. Whereas for whatever reason, Michigan early this year was. It's something we talked about a little bit last week. We touched on that. Michigan got Villanova early. Michigan got North Carolina early. Michigan got Purdue early. And it's helped us, but it's also one of those things you play who's put in front of you, you know. And Michigan
Exactly.
early in the season stepped up and beat everybody.
So let's get to the big talk of the night last night,
Yeah,
and
last
that
night was
was
crazy.
Minnesota helping us out, helping Michigan State out as well, folks. So let's not downplay that.
Helping-
You know, I'm
that's-
sure.
I made the joke that they have Michigan State, and Minnesota fans all rooting, and probably Indiana fans because Indiana hates Purdue.
Yep.
So they have
Yeah,
half
yeah,
the Big Ten
exactly.
is rooting hard for Minnesota right now.
Exactly. And what do? They come out and snub Purdue, upset Purdue. It was at the barn, so it's a tough place
Senior
to
night
play.
though, I think that probably had
They
something
were
to do with
hyped,
it.
and our boy Murphy goes off again with a double-double.
And Amir Coffey with 32.
Yeah,
That guy can
32
shoot,
points.
man.
Coffee has a
Yeah.
big game. Coffee was non-existent against Michigan.
Well, he'd gone 0 for 8 in the previous 2 games combined from 3.
So
And
I
then
got-
he goes 3 of 6 last night.
Well, he picked a good game
Or
to
not
do
3
it.
of 6 last night. He went 3 of 4 last night from 3.
Coffee, if you're watching, you picked a great game to do it, buddy.
We're not mad
That's
about it.
fantastic.
We're
How
not mad
about
about
how'd your boys do for Purdue?
Dude, listen. For those of y'all who
This is
weren't
good,
watching,
folks.
I am not a Carson Edwards fan. I think he's the most overrated player. I said last night, I think after last night's performance, I think he's the most overrated player in the history of the Big Ten in my lifetime. Since I have been born, I cannot remember
history.
somebody being
The
so
history.
hyped up. Here's the thing. Had they won last night, whether he played well or not, had they won last night and earned a share of the Big Ten or won it outright, which now I guess they still can earn a share, I think he probably, if they win it outright, I think he probably gets Big Ten Player of the Year.
Oh, you think so, huh?
I do. I don't think he should, though. And so what I'm saying is if he's getting this much hype, I don't think he should be in consideration for it. I think he's the third team All Big Ten point guard. I think there's 2 better in this state alone. Like, I don't.
I agree.
And the reason being is the guy is shooting now below 26% in games against tournament teams or rivals. He shot 7 for 31 last night, 3 of 15 from 3. At some point, you got to pass the ball, pal. I'm sorry. I know you're the team's leader. I know you're the leading scorer.
And it hurt him.
But
It hurt
they
him.
had those 2, Eifert and Klein, were knocking down 3s left and right. Pass the ball, dude. It's not your night, man. Like, you got to have a little bit of feel for that. Like, hey, man, ain't my night, but y'all are on. I'm going to pass you the ball. And he just doesn't have that.
So would you say you'd go off the handle if he did win? Even now.
We will have a special edition live stream from my room of me breaking things if he wins Big Ten Player of the Year at this point. I will be furious.
You know,
there's no reason for it.
I kind of think, in my opinion anyway, I think Winston's kind of got it wrapped up.
I agree.
Especially now. Like I said, he's been playing phenomenal, especially the last couple of weeks after he had that little stint of turnover-itis there.
He figured it out, and he's been great. He looked great against Michigan.
And to be honest with you,
even in the losses.
now either Michigan or Michigan State will grab a share of that Big Ten title. So,
Right.
Sorry, State fans, rightfully so. He should probably get it. But if
Yeah.
Edwards gets it, oh my goodness,
I will not
I
be
can't
happy.
wait to see this.
I will not
now,
be happy.
there is a chance Purdue goes to Northwestern.
And loses.
That's a tough place to play, folks.
It is.
Northwestern is not a doormat.
Michigan barely beat him.
And let's face it, no one really in the Big Ten is a doormat now. All of a sudden, Maryland goes to Penn State last week. Remember that before the show?
Yeah.
And just gets rolled. Michigan State loses
Yeah.
at Illinois, right?
Indiana twice. Yeah,
And,
there's
I mean,
no
we-
easy places to play.
Exactly. We got some quote unquote bottom dwellers
Right.
that have beat some really good teams and
Yeah.
stuff. So they could easily go in there, and wouldn't that be something? That game is before the Michigan.
I was going to say, I
State
think
game.
that's cool that the game is before because we'll know going in, like, is this for half of the marbles?
Exactly.
Or is this for
Exactly.
everything? You know, is this for the?
Oh,
and by the
my
way, Penn
goodness.
State did win tonight against Rutgers. I know it's not a big win, but Penn State now has 6 conference wins.
all started with that Michigan victory.
They've been rolling
All
since.
started with
Yeah.
that Michigan
Yeah, they've
victory,
been rolling
and they
since.
beat some really good teams.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, good for them. Good for the Nittany Lions. I never had any beef with Penn State really,
Other than
except for this year.
Joe
Whatever.
Paterno and
Joe Pa.
that one weird dude
Oh,
touching kids. and stuff.
Sandusky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Him. Not a fan.
yeah.
Not a
fair
fan.
enough. Fair enough. So we'll move on to some other scores and highlights. Duke at UNC Saturday. That's
Yeah.
before the Michigan game. That'll be
Yeah.
on ESPN. Please tell me they have Dakich and we don't.
No, we have Dockage. He said last night he's going to be there. For the,
Oh,
he was saying during the broadcast during the state game I was watching.
I was
him.
so up on cloud nine
He said,
until you
"Can't
had
wait
to
to
tell
be
me
in
that.
East Lansing on Saturday." And I was
Oh,
like,
jeez, of course. I can't
shoot.
wait to him to be all over Sparty's.
No, he roots for Michigan, so I shouldn't have a problem with him.
I don't get how he is so anti-Michigan then during these games. He always picks a player on the opposing team that he just loves, and he just on
See,
him
last
all
night,
game long.
Palmer played really well for Nebraska, but on the first time Palmer touched the ball, he drove to the basket, and Doc goes, well, the problem with Palmer is, and then the rest of the game, Palmer goes off, and all of a sudden he's like, I love this kid. I'm like, me and my dad were like, you just hated him 5 minutes ago. Like, he's
does your pops like?
No one likes Dockage.
Okay.
My dad hates him as much as we do.
Thank you.
And nobody
All right.
likes him.
Good job, Jeff.
I just don't get it. Why does he get all the Michigan games? I mean, I get he's a Big Ten broadcaster.
He's in Big Ten country and stuff like that.
Give him Rutgers and Penn State tonight. Or something. Like, I don't know. Just get him out of Michigan.
So
State
Duke at UNC Saturday before the Michigan game. What do you think? Zion plays or?
If Zion plays, Duke wins. If he doesn't, they lose. I really think it's that simple. I think Zion is that important to that team. Granted, R.J. Barrett has stepped up and played incredibly in his absence, but it's not enough to beat a team like North Carolina.
I would agree.
I think if Zion plays, Duke wins. Without him, they're going to get beat by 20 again.
I would agree with that. Absolutely. And
he's the only one who plays defense on that team.
So, yeah, I know.
They don't play defense.
It's unbelievable, and they almost lost last night.
Yeah, that was a crazy game.
Lost last night. So UNC had a nice solid win.
Yeah, they looked really good last night.
Again, I still think UNC is on that upward trend.
I was going to say that they have been playing much better as of late, which is super important this time of year.
Yes. And I really think so. This leads us into kind of our number one seeds. I still have Gonzaga at number one. I still have Duke, even though they are just without Zion, they are just not playing the same. That's clear.
Yeah.
That is clear.
Yeah.
Everyone can see that. I don't think that's a secret. However, I still think Zion will make it back for the big dance.
Yeah,
absolutely. He will make it back for the big dance. I think they are really, really milking this injury, as rightfully so. Rightfully so. Yep, I'm definitely not against that. I have your team Virginia, and then I have UNC as the other number one seed.
Gonzaga, Virginia, North Carolina, UNC.
Okay.
The only thing I would debate with that is Duke, Tennessee, or Kentucky. I don't think 3 ACC teams will get number one seeds. I don't think Virginia, North Carolina, and Duke will all be one seeds.
Kind of leads me into the next thing.
So I'd put an SEC team in there.
It's conference tourney time.
Yeah.
It's almost here, and you bring up a good point. 3 ACC teams. Who do you kick out? Who loses? Well, let's go back to this. Who wins? Who wins?
Who wins the conference?
ACC? Yep. Who wins the ACC tourney? Yep.
Ooh, the tournament?
Because you got to believe Zion should be back for that tournament.
Yeah, I'd say Virginia will win the tournament. It's that old you can't beat a team 3 times thing, right?
It's good.
Duke beat Virginia twice already. If they can get past North Carolina, I'd pick Virginia to win the tournament. And I would probably say if Zion is back, Duke will probably get the 1 seed. North Carolina will probably get out, and it'll be Tennessee or Kentucky. I still think there's a long shot chance that Michigan or Michigan State, whoever wins, could still sneak in as a 1 seed. If they win both Saturday and win the Big Ten tournament, they could potentially still be a 1 seed. It's a long shot, but depending on what happens with the ACC and the SEC, there is still a chance of a Big
I'm not
Ten
against
team
that. I'm not against that at all, G. In fact, remember a couple weeks ago, I had Michigan as a number 1 seed. It all depended on that Michigan State game. However, now the tables have kind of turned with Purdue losing, and if they win a share of the Big Ten title, Michigan, obviously they will have Michigan State will then have 3 more losses than Michigan, and I think Michigan has the best shot at getting that number 1 seed simply because of their record, their overall record, and they win Saturday. You're absolutely right. They win the Big Ten tournament.
They'd be 30
I think they
and 4.
have a very, very good shot.
31-4.
Especially depending on who loses in that ACC tournament and who loses in that SEC tournament. Absolutely. I don't think anyone else is sneaking in.
No.
You got no one else sneaking in.
Well, I mean, maybe Texas Tech on outside
shot.
See,
I saw them. I can't take the Big 12 this year.
I don't like it either, but I just think they're the only other team that has a shot. I don't see LSU or Houston is out.
I've seen
State's
Houston,
out. Nevada's out.
Yep.
Marquette's probably out. Yeah.
Boy, how about that crazy thing going on in that Nevada-Utah State game? Did you see that at the end of the game? And
I did not watch it.
Okay.
I just saw that Utah State won it.
It was on SportsCenter stuff. It was just like a big kind of the police were called and stuff like that. The fans it wasn't part of the game. It was after the game, and the fans kind of rushed the court. Mm-hmm. Stuff. I guess they were touching a lot of the Nevada players and stuff like that. Because Utah State obviously upset them.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah,
and they rushed the court, and then there were some Utah State fans or players, I don't know who it was, but back in the locker room area, back in the hallways of the locker room area, and I guess a Nevada player got injured, actually broke some glass and stuff.
That's crazy. I didn't hear anything about that.
Yeah, kind of like Hoosiers when he got shoved into the trophy case, and just little cut and
funny.
stuff like that. And yeah, the cops had to restrain some people and stuff like that.
Did
So
not
kind
hear
of
about
crazy.
that. That is
Sorry, just kind of a side note, folks.
No,
but
that's interesting.
I mean, to egg on that. So yeah, we move on to the Big Ten tournament, and I still think it all depends on how Michigan is. If Michigan again continues to not have these cold streaks, I think we'll get into our predictions on Saturday. But I still think if they don't have these cold streaks, I think they roll decently through the Big Ten tournament. The Big Ten tournament. I think they start picking it up a little bit, and I just call me a hopeless romantic, right? When it comes to that, I'll tell you what. I just continue to have faith that they're gonna get out of the slump of really having these 10-minute cold streaks
Scoring
in a game.
droughts.
Scoring droughts. I'm not going to say, let's not say scoring droughts, field goal droughts, right? Because every once in a while they still get some free throws and stuff like that.
True.
But what do you think about the Big Ten tournament then, G? What do you got going on there?
I mean, if I had to pick a winner right now, I would pick State just because they beat us the first time head-to-head.
Does Saturday matter to you?
Yeah, absolutely
Okay.
it does. Yeah, momentum's super important in my opinion, especially with kids. I mean, these dudes are 18 to 22,
Sure.
you know. I think it's super important that we go into it with a little bit. I think another loss would really hurt Michigan's confidence going into it. So that, you know, I think the winner of Saturday is going to have momentum rolling into the tournament and have a much more likely chance to win the whole thing.
Do you think it would hurt their confidence, or would they be considering themselves an underdog at that point? Which we know Michigan is dangerous when it comes to them being an underdog.
Yeah, I don't know. I would rather be going and riding high, personally. As a
I don't
former
disagree with
player,
that,
and
but
if I was coaching, I would rather us win and roll than be in a position where we feel like our back's against the wall now. If we want to get a 1 or 2 seed, we have to win this whole thing.
Yes. That's for certain. I do think as a 1 or 2 seed, we definitely need to play well I think a 2 seed last weekend kind of wrapped that up as long as we get a win in the Big Ten tournament, right? Because don't forget, we'd only play 3 games in the Big Ten tournament to win it all, because we will have those first 2 round buys and stuff like that. So we're not playing until Friday, regardless of what happens.
And I think there's so much to be said for Charles's health and Nick Ward's health for Saturday even, but also for the Big Ten tournament. Who, you know what I mean? It's hard to pick who would win right now. Is Charles going to be healthy completely? How's that ankle? Is Nick Ward going to be able to shoot with his left hand when he comes back? How's his hand?
Is Nick Ward guaranteed coming back? Or?
I don't know. I don't know either of them. I haven't.
I haven't heard anything
on
either,
either of them.
Yeah, I haven't heard. I heard that Matthews was a game time decision against Maryland.
And
so I would assume this Saturday he'll be ready to rock and roll. But
and even there's a lot of times where those guys come back and they shouldn't have. You know what I mean? They weren't ready.
Well, don't rush it.
Exactly.
And that kind of, you know, you bring up, that's a good point, G, because the Sunday game against Michigan State, I was told that he was kind of injured and playing injured in that. And at that point, you know, if you're not 100% against a team like Michigan State, tell coach. Tell coach, be like, Coach, I am not 100%.
I agree.
You know, a lot of those games, and those guys are competitors. I totally understand why. But if you're 90% and you can't guard and you are not a threat on offense, because he couldn't cut, I guess. He couldn't cut very well.
I mean,
and that's part of his game.
It's
part of his game, right? It's part of his game. And you got to tell Coach B, you gotta take me out. This is I'm hurting the team right now because my defense is down and I'm not what I normally could be, you know, am in terms of cutting the basket and shooting that Kobe Bryant fadeaway and stuff like that. So
for sure.
So we will move on to the next topic, and that is Simpson got snubbed off the Bob Cousy Award finalist. For those of you who don't know, that's the award that goes to the top point guard in the country. The 5 finalists were named this week. That is Josh Perkins from Gonzaga, who is currently Gonzaga number 1 in the country. Tremont Waters from LSU, who's number 10 in the country. Marcus Howard from Marquette, who's number 16. Cassius Winston, of course, MSU, who's currently number 9. And Ja Morant of Murray State, who is currently unranked. And the reason I bring up the rankings for these teams are, you know, a lot of times, most of the time, the point guard is your leader on the floor. It should be anyway. 95% of the time is your leader on the floor. And to have a lot of these guys on this list that are ranked behind a lot of better point guards, I feel. Now, of course, we've discussed before that the stats from Xavier Simpson, the stats that you look at most of the time are not the greatest, right? They're not the eye test just isn't there. At the same time, most valuable to your team, I still think it's Simpson. So some of these guys, Cassius Winston, of course, I agree with. Ja, I just don't think. Yeah, he's one of the most. He's probably behind Zion. Probably is probably the most exciting player in college basketball. And then Perkins, Waters, and Howard. Again, they have really good stats.
Yep.
How important is like Howard to the number 16 Marquette? You know what I mean?
Tonight.
They just lost.
Yeah.
Did they? Okay. You happen to know his stats at all or anything on that game?
I don't know his
okay.
for the night. I just know that they got beat by Seton Hall, who's a bubble team tonight.
So we got Simpson coming in with, again, not great stats, 9.2 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game.
Yeah.
That's pretty solid for a point guard, especially for a 6-footer, right?
Absolutely.
6-foot point guard, 5.1 rebounds per game, and he still is phenomenal, 6.3.
Howard had a Carson Edwards performance tonight. He was 2 of 11 from the floor, 2 of 10 from 3.
I like the Edwards.
Along with 5 turnovers.
Oh,
Walking right into the point I know you're trying to make.
Go ahead. What do you got, G?
It's just that Xavier doesn't turn the ball over. I completely understand where you're coming from. I think 2 people got snubbed. I think Xavier should be in there, and I also think Jordan Boone at Tennessee should be in there.
Yeah, you love those Vols. I'll tell you
It's
what.
not that I love the Vols. It's that I think Xavier and Jordan are both more important to their team than some of these guys.
That's the point I was trying to make.
Good enough stats to be in the same conversation. I think Tremont Waters missed 2 games with a little injury these last 2. He came back tonight. He came off the bench and played okay. They won in overtime by 1 against Florida, by the way.
By 1, folks.
Yeah.
By 1 point.
But he's
against
not,
Florida.
He's not their guy. Naz Reid is their guy. And again, that's not to say that Xavier is Michigan's guy when it comes to scoring, but Xavier's the guy that makes that team go, right?
Absolutely.
Whereas at Gonzaga, Josh Perkins isn't the guy that makes that team go. It's Rui Hachimura. I disagree about Ja Morant. In my opinion, the finalist 5 should have been Cassius, Ja Morant, Marcus Howard, Boone, and Simpson. I think Perkins.
You do
and
put
Waters,
Simpson in that top 5
yes,
then.
He's
okay.
5th, in my opinion.
Okay.
He's 5th.
Okay.
Yep.
See, and that's tough. I know we'll probably get some grief for that because, you homers. Yes, we are, first of all.
Right. We're
we
huge
are
fans of Xavier Simpson. Absolutely are.
You heard us on our very first episode. Totally agree that Simpson, even at that point, and I still think it holds true, is still the MVP of this team.
Yep.
How about these stats? Leads the team in minutes played. That is huge. That means he is always on the court, folks. And we just talked about, what did we talk about? Stamina, right? Getting winded. All of that stuff is key. And he is still there at the end of the game. Almost playing, average like 30. He's probably upwards around 34, 35 minutes average
He's
per
playing
game.
34 a game.
Okay, perfect. I didn't even have that stat. So
I got you.
So how about this one? Our classic turnover to assist or assist to turnover ratio.
Yep.
That one we mention almost every week. Every week.
Literally.
It is very rare that he has more than 3 turnovers, and it's very rare that he has less than 7,
5
8
or 6
assists.
yeah.
Exactly. In fact, the past 2 games he's had double figures in assists. So these are numbers that don't stick out to you. Yeah, you got some very exciting players here. Don't get me wrong. I agree with G on this one. Cassius Winston, of course.
Wrapped it up.
More, of course. I do think he still should be on there. I was just trying to make the point of you got an unranked team right there. He is definitely the most valuable player on that team, right? But what happened to Murray State? They used to be pretty solid, actually.
They're pretty good this year. They don't. Another case where you lose a few games and you don't play anybody, you're going to fall off.
Absolutely.
So, I think it's Xavier's scoring that hurts him, which I get. I do think if he scored, what doesn't he score 9 a game, something like that? Let's see. I got
Simpson 9.2.
9.2.
Yep.
If that was 13, I know it's 4 points, which seems like a lot when it's only 9.2. If that was 13, he'd be in that list hands down. The problem is he doesn't score. And I'm not saying that I agree with this, but I'm saying that's why he's not on there. The problem for me with putting Waters in there is he averages almost 3.5 turnovers a game. He came back off the bench today. He had 6 turnovers tonight against Florida.
Why was he on the bench?
Because he's been hurt. He's just coming back from his injury. So they brought him off the bench tonight. He had those 6 turnovers off he didn't start and he still had 6 turnovers. The ball couldn't have been in your hands that much if he came off the bench. I hate people love to use that excuse. Well, the ball was in his hands longer, so he had more turnovers. Not when you came off the bench, it wasn't. You know what I mean? You weren't even the starting point guard tonight. He shot 8 of 16 from the floor, though, so he has 19 points, 6 assists. If all you look at is 19, 6, and 3 rebounds, 3 steals, he looks like a top 5 point guard. But if you dig deeper and look at these turnovers and you look at the fact that he's a volume scorer as a point guard, I think that's another thing that causes Simpson to get knocked too. Is Simpson is your throwback like 80s, 90s NBA point guard that distributes first and scores second.
Yes.
Whereas
yes.
these other guys are scoring point guards. They're more Russell Westbrook, Steph
Yep.
Curry type players. Whereas Xavier Simpson is more your Chris Paul, Gary Payton, John Stockton type of point guard that's going to pass first, rebound, going to not turn the ball over, and he's going to lead the team from that standpoint. So
that was another good
depends
stat.
on your definition of point guard.
It was another good stat you brought up too, is people always say, well, he has the ball more. Don't forget, Simpson led the conference in turnovers per touches.
Right.
What do you have, like 4 turnovers? I think it was middle of the season. Of course, it was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he had, 4 turnovers per like 100 touches.
Right.
That is insane. And don't forget the minutes played again. So obviously, as a point guard, and he is playing the most minutes on that team, 34 minutes, folks. That's 6 minutes worth of break. That is 6 minutes throughout a whole game of break. And I'll tell you what, I'm amazed that it's even that many minutes.
I haven't looked at like a game log by any means, but
It's-
I would
it's
assume in the
just hard.
Big Ten, it's a lot higher than that.
I agree.
Because in those non-conference games, sure, he probably played 25, 30 minutes. Now he's probably playing closer to 36, 37.
I would agree. It just doesn't seem like you rarely see him on the bench. It just doesn't seem like that.
No, I agree with that for sure.
So yeah,
I think him and Boone both got the short stick.
Got the snub on that one.
But that always happens every year. There's going to be those guys. You know, I'm sure we could go position by position and see. Well, at shooting guard, this guy got snubbed in small. So you know what I mean? It's a tough thing when you're narrowing it down to the 5 best in the country. There's a lot of opinions involved, and there's always going to be those players that you feel like got snubbed, and unfortunately, this year one of them happens to play for our team.
Right. Let me ask you this, G. Here's a good question for you. Out of those 5, who goes pro?
Out of the 5 finalists,
Yeah.
John Cassius will have the 2 best pro careers, in my opinion.
No, who goes pro this year?
Oh, Ja. Is Perkins a senior at Gonzaga? I don't know. I don't know all their ages. That makes it tough. But I would say Ja. Is he the only one that's going to go pro? No, Howard. I think
Winston's going pro. You don't think Winston's going pro?
No.
You don't think so?
He'll be back.
Ooh.
He's a college. He's a college kid. He ain't. I don't. He'll be a role point guard in the NBA. He's never going to be a. You know what I mean?
I agree.
He's not. He wouldn't be a lottery pick. Why go pro? No guaranteed money. Why go pro? But no, Ja.
We've seen stranger things.
John Morant will be a top 3 pick in the NBA draft, top 5 at the worst. So he'll be out for sure.
Yep. So there, and we'll have Simpson next year. So
Absolutely.
So he will be in there, and then
he's
of course,
got another chance too. That's a good point.
Of course, the hook shot, the famous hook shot, brings a little.
On Saturday.
It does bring a little extra media attention, and so every announcer in the country basically
has been talking about it.
Even when he's not playing, he'll still get some attention from it, especially in the Big Ten.
Yep.
A lot of the guys will say, "Oh, looks like a little Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a little Xavier Simpson." Yep.
Absolutely.
So the best hook shot since Kareem. So. Yeah, that's fantastic. But we'll move on to our next segment before we get into the preview for Saturday. That is our Call the 3 segment. We got some solid ones for you tonight, G. I'll tell you what, you're going to love these. So the very first one, I was basically just looking. I saw this on Twitter, actually, and it was Vince Carter passed Reggie Miller for 20th all-time on the scoring list, all-time in the NBA.
Wow, good for him.
It just brought up Vince Carter. Now, who is your favorite all-time dunker in the NBA?
In game or dunk contest included?
Oh, it can be anything because.
See, because I like Nate Robinson.
I love it.
Contest.
He's my second favorite.
I would say I don't remember Spud Webb. I've seen his videos.
He was my first. Dang it, G.
Yeah,
good work, man.
I like the small guys.
I agree.
But I think the most exciting dunker's got to be Vince. I mean, jumping over that dude, that Australian dude for Team USA. He put the elbow in the rim first.
There's just certain. I remember that dunk contest. He basically reinvented.
Iconic. The dunk contest was dead, and then Vince Carter showed up. Basically.
What do you got? Yeah, the Spud Webb slam dunk contest. Yeah, the Dominique Wilkins windmill probably
against Jordan from the free throw line.
Yeah, the Jordan free throw line. Yep. And then you had Vince Carter. Oh, I guess Isaiah Ryder between the legs was pretty cool. That was solid.
But
he was the first one to kind of do that.
Yeah.
And now they're getting pretty creative nowadays with the dunk contests and stuff. I like
Dwight
the rules
Howard,
that they
when
put
he
in.
did the Superman thing.
That was cool.
Shaq,
that was cool.
And this year that kid from the Thunder jumped over Shaq.
Yeah, real cool.
The dunk contest is getting good again, I think, but I think Vince Carter kind of rejuvenated it, brought it back a little bit, and
I would
made
agree.
Big dunks mainstream again.
I totally agree because he brought it back. He brought it back. So
for sure.
Actually, this was off your little Twitter feed there,
Oh
G.
gosh,
Tiger,
that's a dangerous
Yeah, I know.
place to be hanging
so
out,
Tiger,
man.
Tiger Woods withdrawals from this weekend's tourney. I saw you're a little bummed out. Now, I got to ask your opinion, or
Okay.
maybe you know some more information than I do. Is this more of the same that we've seen in the past couple years, or is this just a little tweak
I
injury
don't
that
think
he'll
so.
be back?
I think it's the latter. It's a neck strain. He's never had neck problems, really. It's always been his knee or his back. And his back has held up fine. He's got his swing figured out, it seemed like. I just was disappointed that I don't. So last weekend, he played 2 weeks ago, and he played pretty well, and he's played fairly well so far this year. And then last weekend, he's like, yeah, I'm just not going to play. Like, I'm going to take the week off, and I'll be back for Bay Hill. And then now he's not playing this weekend, which bummed me out. But, yeah.
Does that hurt? Do you watch the tournament? I mean, I know you.
I will.
How often do you watch golf?
Way more than I'm proud to admit as a 22-year-old. I feel like
that's all right.
golf, like on TV, golf is like an old man thing, and I don't know if it's just because that's what my pops watched when I was a kid, or
Okay,
if
fair enough.
I do play golf a lot and I love it, so I watch it more than I probably
Fair
should.
enough. That's fair enough.
So yes, I will still watch it, but I think what you were going to get at is that golf is a lot more mainstream when Tiger is playing, and it's even more mainstream when Tiger is playing well.
Yeah, of course.
There's people talking about it all the time, whereas when he's not playing, are that many people really casually talking about
I
professional
think
golf?
it definitely hurts the sport.
It does, absolutely.
You got to have someone.
Absolutely.
We need another Tiger Woods to come into the
Absolutely.
into
And
the
there's a
game.
few young guys right now. I mean, I could talk about golf forever, but there are a few young guys that I think could be, but man, he changed golf.
The reason
so
I
much.
disagree with that is because they're not. You
Yeah,
say they
they're-
could be.
Well, I'm saying they're
you know
young.
What I mean?
They have, you know what I mean? But
Are they 6 years old and?
well,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
That's true.
You know what I
That's
mean?
true.
He was on what, Johnny Carson or whatever, hitting
Yeah,
that
I
ball.
believe so.
I don't know if it
Yeah.
was Johnny Carson.
But he was
Someone
young.
correct
He was
me.
young.
But yeah, think about that.
You're right. You're right. And
So
he was,
if it hasn't happened yet, if everyone doesn't know about him and he's in the PGA right now, then
that's probably a fair point, actually. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, but you're absolutely right.
just something, because that was Tiger. You know what I mean? There was
100%.
no, here comes the next Jack Nicklaus. Nope, it was Tiger
all of a
Woods,
sudden
right?
It's Tiger, and it's right now.
Yep, exactly.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
So that's a solid one, and I would tend to disagree a little bit. I think these injuries. He's getting old.
Well, yeah,
and
I mean,
really
I think
think
at his age, anything has potential to be serious, but I'm not particularly worried about this one.
Okay,
I think he tried to play through it, which probably made it worse. And it's just give him a couple weeks. He'll be back. The Players is in March, and then the Masters is in April. Those are two huge tournaments. I think he just wants to make sure that he's at his peak for those two tournaments because he's obviously chasing the 18 Masters.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, the
Yep.
18
Majors,
by
yep.
Jack Nicklaus. So
Yep.
I think he just wants to make sure he's his peak game for those tournaments.
Yeah, fair enough. And again, I don't know a lot of information. I do not watch a lot of golf, but I do
Tiger's
miss
playing, you
Tiger.
do. Yeah,
Exactly. So another sport you're really into, I am not, but the Women's World Cup is this summer, which is
Yeah, it is.
fantastic. I do enjoy watching the Women's World Cup. It is probably the only soccer I remember back in
You don't watch the Men's
'99.
World Cup?
Actually, what's that?
You don't watch the men's?
No, because we're terrible. Well, we weren't even in it
weren't
last
in it
time,
this
were we?
time.
Jeez,
No,
oh,
we
Pete.
weren't.
Come on, guys. Unbelievable.
Right.
However, that leads me into a solid question.
Okay.
And you'll like this, the most underrated sporting event that happens within a
Sporting
year. You know what I mean?
event. Yeah. I think people sleep on the Winter Olympics.
That's a good one. That's a good one. The only reason I would say no is in the United States anyways, because obviously we're more of a Summer Olympics.
Yeah, and I like the Summer Olympics better, but I also do enjoy the winter. I think a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
do
people are
too.
like, "Oh yeah, we had the Olympics like just a minute
Yeah,
ago, and nobody
yeah.
watched them." You know?
Yeah.
Um.
Plus, they got cool events in the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, dude,
Those,
some of it's
there's
cool
some
stuff.
solid ones.
I also like. I think people sleep on the Masters. It's.
Do you?
I think
you
it's
think
because
they
it's
sleep on it?
4
huh?
days long. Of the same thing, like
Okay,
the Olympics.
okay.
It's whatever 2-3 weeks of different stuff every day. So some people, whereas golf, you're watching the same dudes hit the same shots on the same holes 4 days in a row. In theory, now if you dig into it a little deeper, to me, the golf is such an interesting game. So I think the Masters in the winter, because to me, the Masters in March Madness are tied for my two favorite sporting events.
Now, I would say
More than the World Cup and the Olympics.
the Masters on Sunday, though.
Oh, Sunday at the Masters
is
is
huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim Nance, CBS every year.
Oh, it's fantastic.
iconic, yeah.
It's fantastic. Even as a guy that doesn't like to watch golf, really,
Right.
I always tune in on that Sunday.
have to,
Actually,
yeah.
head over to T-Bones, and it's
Right.
yeah, it's tradition. It's
have
been
to.
tradition for like a decade. So
I'm assuming you think that like the Daytona 500 is a little
no, because it's not underrated. It's
Okay.
heavily
That's true.
publicized.
It's about the only.
advertised.
It's one of the few times NASCAR is like heavily on like ESPN.
Right, right.
Main sports channels are on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, not a chance. You'll like this though. You'll like this. I'm gonna say the Little League World Series.
Ooh, that's a good one.
The Little
That's a
League
good
World
one.
Series.
You know what's funny about
Everyone
that?
loves watching that whole. I mean, we're talking 11, 12-year-olds, and they're stars.
Yeah.
They're stars.
Yeah.
Geez, we buy jerseys, we buy T-shirts with
Right,
these kids
right,
on them
that's
and
true.
stuff like that, and it's from the time they're playing in their states. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because ESPN media coverage
it
obviously
underrated,
is
though?
huge. I would say yes because you didn't think about it, did you?
That's true.
You know,
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I think it's
And it's
definitely one of those
kids.
things
It's
you only
kids.
think about when it's around, and the
Right,
rest of you like
right.
put it on the back burner. You're like, yeah, I'll watch a few games for
yeah,
sure.
and then it'll come out and be like, oh heck
I
yeah,
love
the
the
Little League
World
World
Series.
Series,
That's
and
true.
especially of
That's a
course
good
the
shout.
final game.
That's a good shout.
The final
for
game.
sure.
And the only reason I bring that up is because I think like Women's World Cup soccer is kind of course they advertise it and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm. Right.
we are really good. Aren't we going for like our third or fourth straight?
No,
in
we-
the women's.
We won the last one. Did we win the one? I think we lost one before that. We won the Olympics in between. But yeah,
Oh, okay,
The
okay.
women are great. They do a much better job than the men. To be fair.
Yeah, they make it actually.
They're competitive.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure.
Unbelievable.
Am I up?
Yeah, go ahead, G.
All
What do you
right.
got for me?
First one for you is the Detroit News published their projected starters for the 2019 Michigan football team, right?
Okay.
I was surprised by one position, and that was running back, because they picked Christian Turner as the expected starter
Over True Wilson
True
and
Wilson
Charbonnet.
and our boy that I can't say his name. Would you be surprised if Christian Turner is the game one starter for Michigan at running back?
Yes.
Okay. Because
I
I
really
was too.
would.
I didn't know if he'd be in a. I don't think he'll start. I think True Wilson. And again, starter at running back is such a goofy term nowadays because 3 running backs play usually,
Exactly.
2
exactly.
for sure. So it doesn't
I mean, he
matter
could
which-
start the game and only have 4 carries,
exactly.
and someone else could
So
have.
I guess instead of saying will he be the starter, do you think he'll get the load of the carries, or do you think it'll be True?
No,
and Charbonnet?
absolutely not. I do think Charbonnet has a great repertoire of skills and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I've seen a lot of I've watched a lot of his recruiting videos and stuff like that, a lot of
sure.
his high school games.
sure.
He looks like a solid Jim Harbaugh running back. Now, that kind of scares me because I hope Jim Harbaugh kind of changes up the offense this year.
Yeah,
Gets a little
that's
more
true.
creative and stuff like that. We
Well,
we
he
have to
ain't play calling
adapt.
this year. So
That's true. That's
Which-
true.
yeah,
That's true.
That'll be nice.
That's very true. And I think he did give power to the Alabama guy, right?
Yep.
So that really helps, and I think I just think that Charbonnet will have more of a catching the ball in the backfield and stuff
Yep.
like
He's
that.
more versatile.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
exactly. Now, don't get me wrong. I love True Wilson as well.
Yeah, I think True will be like your power third down back,
Yep.
and then Chardonnay will be
Yep.
your feature back. I agree.
Yep.
So Landon Collins was released by the Giants in Vegas.
I saw that.
Release, which surprised me because I think Landon Collins is great. He's his odds were posted by Vegas as to who is most likely to sign him, and lo and behold, the Detroit Lions are first. Now, I'm curious what you think their number one need is in free agency in the NFL this year. If the Lions can only do one,
jeez,
if they could
oh,
only
geez.
get one of these free agents, who would you like to see him go after?
God, everyone's going to disagree with this because I don't think, like, in my opinion, on defense, they weren't that bad last year.
Okay.
They just weren't that bad. And I hate to say it, but Stafford just had a terrible year. But that's like the most impossible position that they're going to sign a
Go
free
after
agent,
in free
right?
agency. Well, you've
They
got
will
a couple
not.
options. You've got so the only thing I could see them doing at quarterback is trading Stafford and picking up like Teddy Bridgewater.
But the problem is we still got to pay him. You know, we still have to pay him even if we trade him.
Right.
So we got to pay him like $30 million.
Yeah, I don't see.
And I
them
just
getting
don't
rid
think
of
that's
Stafford.
going to
And
happen. So
I don't know if I think they should.
if it were to sign a free agent, God, there's such. I just saw on Twitter today. There's such a list of such great free agents out
Eric
there.
Weddle just got released by the Ravens.
Weddle,
as well.
yeah, Weddle.
Love Bell, obviously. Antonio
Yes.
Brown, the big name guys.
Yep,
but
yep. You
yeah,
got Nick
Landon
Foles
Collins,
out there
Nick
just
Foles,
hanging
Teddy
out, right?
Bridgewater. Yeah.
And my thing is, in my opinion, if they were to get someone, get a big lineman, get a big offensive lineman.
That's
I'm not going to say it's their biggest
Their biggest need, but it'd
I
be-
think their biggest need is honestly quarterback, and I wouldn't have said that if Stafford wouldn't have just absolutely stunk this last year. I was always kind of on the Stafford bandwagon. Give him a chance,
I was as
give him
well.
a chance, give him a chance.
I shifted to. I'd say I'm on the fence about Stafford. Part of me is like, give him a little bit more time.
Right.
I think part of that is because we owe him so much money regardless.
I
I'm
know.
Like, we might as
I
well
know.
roll with him.
And he's still young. He's still
not-
young.
yeah,
He's only
he
30.
He could play for 10 more years.
Exactly.
Look at Tom
Oh.
Brady. Oh, well, yeah, I didn't mean that
Oh,
negatively. I
yeah,
meant that
yeah.
potentially positively. My third thing, for those who aren't big combine people, I am. Devin Bush ran a 4.43.
Yep,
40.
saw that.
tied Denard Robinson and David Terrell for the second fastest players at the Combine since it came in 2000. There was one Wolverine. I told you I'm going to have one that's a quiz for you every week.
Okay.
One Wolverine has ran faster. He ran a 4.39. Do you know who it was?
Can you give me a hint on the year?
I would say 05 or 06. I don't know for sure.
Morgan Trent.
No, but the same position. The next year, whatever. I think Trent was 04, and I think Leon Hall.
Leon Hall.
Was
Well,
05.
that's not a bad guy. Yeah, I was thinking
But
Morgan
what
Trent because
shocked me is that Devin Bush is as fast as Denard
Robinson.
Because Denard looked so fast.
Did they make him tie his shoelaces though?
I don't know.
You never know. They might have some
true.
regulations.
He actually got his first 2 catches in the AAF this week. Denard did for
That a
Atlanta.
boy, Denard.
That's a side
See,
note,
I
but-
love Denard.
I did
thought
too.
Denard was awesome.
But yeah, Devin Bush is as fast as him and about 60 pounds heavier and about 5 times meaner. Can you imagine? I mean, I think he's gonna have a great NFL career. I really
my
do.
goodness.
But I just thought that was really interesting that the 4.43 ties David Terrell, a wideout, and Denard Robinson, a quarterback, and he's a linebacker, man. He's
That
a freak.
is, yeah.
He's a freak.
Oh, by the way, Rashawn Gary had a solid combine.
I think Devin Bush had a great one, and I think Rashawn Gary's was solid.
We had 2 guys that made the all combine team.
Yep.
That was Rashawn Gary and Devin Bush. So, which is pretty solid considering all the critics and sports news guys and stuff like that basically said it was going to be SEC sweep.
Yep. Yeah.
And Michigan comes in, so good for them.
Yep.
Good for them.
We've got a handful of comments all from the good old Jeff Collier account. We got a damn Mormons to the conversation about Utah State and Nevada fighting.
Oh yeah.
When is Matthews back? Great question. Wish we knew the answer.
We thought he was going to be
Hopefully
back.
Saturday.
We thought he was going to be back on last Sunday because
Yep.
it was a game time decision, and I honestly didn't know he was even that injured. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
didn't
I
know he
agree.
was that injured.
In regards to Simpson, he said his scoring average and shooting percentage kill him. It's best point guard, not who is more valuable to the team. Damn homers, which we said we know
Yeah.
he doesn't score. It just
Jeff, we totally understand where your bias is coming from. So,
and then he said it was the Mike Douglas show that Tiger was on. Not
oh,
Mike
okay,
Tyson.
okay.
So,
See, I knew some dude that was over 50 would probably know that. You know,
the AARP club
unbelievable.
that was around to
Did you
watch it.
watch that when you were like in college, Jeff?
yeah.
Or actually, you probably graduated already, didn't you?
no way. So now you're making me seem old.
Oh, yeah, well, great questions this week, G. So let's move on to the big one, folks. That is Michigan State this Saturday. It was at 8 o'clock, right? It'll be 8 o'clock ESPN or whenever the Duke North Carolina game ends. Obviously, it is round 2. Sparty going for the season sweep. It is for a share at the current time, a share of the Big Ten title. We do not know if Purdue will win or lose. It could be for the whole thing. I love it. I'm gonna go over to you first here, G. And what do you got, buddy?
Listen, I'm going right back to what I said the first time. Tillman, Goins, and McQuaid are the key. Cassius is going to get his. I thought last night was interesting. Every starter was in double figures except for him, and they won by, what did they win by, 25, whatever. I don't think that'll happen against Michigan. I think Cassius is going to get his. It's going to come down to do those guys play the way they did the first time. No Orange this time might hurt him a little bit, but was he that effective when he was in there with half of a back? I don't know. Michigan's got to defend better. Teskey has to look better defensively, and they've got to shoot the ball better. They can't go 10 minutes without a bucket. I'm going to pick State to win by 5.
Okay.
Simply based on what happened last time. Izzo figured him out and had a great game plan, and State executed it just as well.
Yep.
And, you know, I'm obviously going to root for Michigan, but I'm gonna pick State to win by 5.
So I got to ask you this: are you going against Beeline making the adjustments? Because remember, I had a few M factors there. One was that stupid, and they do it against everyone. And sorry, Beeline, I'm not gonna call it stupid. I'd never go against Beeline. But you remember that when they screen up top there, and they have Teskey step out, and Cassius just torched them to the bucket pretty much every time.
Or he kicked it to Tillman
every time. Yeah. Almost every single time.
Right.
You could see it coming. And for once, Beeline did not make an adjustment during the game, which I thought was very weird considering I thought everyone could see that.
Right.
And 2, do we go on a 4-point, 12-minute drought? Those are my 2 things because you know what? They did Michigan State last time. They did everything that we said that they had to do to beat us, right? Yep. Everything they had to do to beat us. But guess what we didn't do? We did 2 things wrong.
Yep.
1, we went cold, so you really can't call that going wrong. That's just going cold. Sorry, that happens. It's basketball.
Right.
And 2, They didn't make the adjustment that I thought
Defensively.
that they would make, and then
Right.
we don't lose by that much. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, we only lost by
6 or
8,
7, yeah.
which,
Was it 67, 61,
like that.
67, 60?
Yeah.
So that is where I say we make an adjustment.
What's your pick?
Boom, we're in.
Michigan?
I still got Michigan. Here's one. I got Michigan by 3 points.
Okay.
I got Michigan by 3,
Okay.
and I'm gonna call we're up by 1. They miss a shot and have to follow us to go up.
And we'll make the
And
free
we
throws.
make
Well,
they follow
let's
Simpson.
hope-
That's for you,
no,
Collier.
I was gonna say, let's
That's
hope
for
they
you,
don't
Collier.
Foul Xavier.
No, I'll tell you what. Z's been shooting free throws just fine this year.
Just
He's
fine.
solved it. He's
Yeah.
solved it. No, he's in the 80.
Um,
He's in the 80% now. He's fine.
In maybe the last 10, not for the year. He's only like 70.
Oh, in the Big Ten, he's just fine. Remember, he solved it.
I hope.
He solved it.
I would prefer they foul Jordan or Isaiah, but okay.
You know, I mean,
Or
both of
Iggy.
those guys have been kind of chonging. How about this? If Matthews is playing, not Matthews.
Not Matthews. He
just-
has not figured it out.
I have no idea how he cannot shoot free throws. What's he?
Got the
He's
Andre
in,
Drummond
he's in
bug,
like
man.
the 50s.
Speaking of my Pistons,
How'd they do?
they won.
That's
They
awesome.
won.
We're watching the Pistons
They're
before the show,
rolling.
guys.
They're
What
rolling.
do they got now, G? What are they up to?
I think 12 out of 14. They've got a back-to-back against the Bulls, home and away coming up, which the Bulls are the worst team in the East. So 2 more winnable, could get to 14 to 16.
Oh man,
Pistons could be a 5 seed, baby. I'm telling you. I'm going to every home playoff game. I'm calling
is
it
that
right
the
now.
best they can do?
Probably? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because the top 3 are pretty secure, right?
Top 3.
What do you
even
got?
top
Boston,
4
Milwaukee,
really are.
Toronto, or
Boston,
not in that order?
Well, so
but
right now Indiana is still up there because they've just now started to fall. But you've got Milwaukee and Toronto 1, 2. Indiana's currently 3. Philly 4. Boston 5. We are now 6, I believe, and the Nets are 7. But we could quickly catch Indiana as they fall. It's a little bit of a run to get above 6, but it's possible. We're not getting top 4. But
I'll tell you what, I'd be hyped for the Pistons to make the,
I would
the
go
playoffs,
to
especially.
I just said I would go to every home game. I'd go to at least one. I would
Hey.
go to a home playoff game.
You know what? It's been a while since we've had a really exciting Detroit Pistons team.
Yeah.
Jeez, OP, it's
A long
15
time.
years.
A long
15
time.
years probably, you know. I
Yep.
think, 06 or something like that was.
Yeah, they went to every. I read the stat. They went to every conference finals from 03 to 07, 08, I think, and then
Okay,
they missed
then
the
the
playoffs
team
9
just-
years in a row.
Just disbanded and
Trash.
unbelievable. Well, you got anything else? Don't forget this weekend, folks. It's Purdue at Northwestern. So get on there and
At
root
2
for the
o'clock.
Wildcats. Root for the Wildcats,
Northwestern.
right?
Yeah.
G, what do you got? What's the word on the streets for the shows this week?
Just Sunday, a little Sunday fun day at Morsky's Pub.
Morsky's Pub, folks. For those of
Yeah.
you who don't know, what's that? East Side. That's all East Michigan down
yeah.
there.
I've got a couple really talented girls coming out to sing. It's me, Sadie Bass, and Clara Wadley, and we're going to play for 3 hours and sing you some songs and probably drink too much. And have a good
Nice.
time. Yeah.
Good old Sundays, folks. What do you got? Anything going on at the Loft or?
Next Thursday is our first event at the Loft.
Oh, congrats,
Yeah.
man. That's awesome.
I'm
Yeah,
excited.
get on out to Morsky's. Hopefully celebrate a nice Michigan victory.
I hope so.
And
Otherwise, I'm going to be real bummed. I'm going to sing a
Yeah.
lot of sad songs if Michigan loses on Saturday
G
night.
will be all bummed, but let's
Yeah.
hope not. Let's hope not. A big win and hopefully celebrating a Michigan,
Let's hope.
at very least, co-championship.
Yeah.
Go into that Big Ten. I'll tell you what, going into the Big Ten tournament as a number 1 or number 2 seed would be kind of huge too.
Yeah.
Now we would go in as a number 1, right? If we win,
I don't.
We would have
'cause
to.
We beat them head to head. Yeah.
yep,
we
we'd
would
beat them head to head,
Yep.
and we have the better overall record.
Yes.
We have the better overall record.
Which
I'm not
means we
sure.
would- but I think that means we would play State in the semifinal, not the finals, which would kind of stink. I'd like to see State again. in the
Why
Big
wouldn't
Ten
State be
championship.
3rd seed then?
Maybe 3. Yeah. Which
Unless
would kind
per-
of stink. But oh well.
Yeah.
Play 'em when you play 'em, I guess.
Well. Oh well. Well, anything else to add there, G?
That's all I got. Josh Saldana says hi. He's waving at us. So,
What's up,
Josh?
homie? Yeah, get on down to Nightlight. See our boy Josh. That's
For sure.
good times. Good times. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in tonight. If you haven't yet, you can watch all of our episodes on YouTube. We discussed a little bit tonight about going on to Facebook too, maybe Facebook Live on the upcoming weeks here to get a little more live interaction and stuff like that. But if not, check out, again, just type in the M Factor, or A to G is actually, you can type that into your YouTube search and then check out all the episodes and stuff like that. Leave us some likes, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. Other than that, we appreciate it. Have a great night, folks. Great weekend, and go blue.